30 years ago, in what can be argued as the greatest upset in sports history, Buster Douglas, a 42-1 underdog, knocked out the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Iron Mike Tyson. While you may know a few things about that historic night in Tokyo, there's more. And it's time to hear the rest of the story. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Hello, sports historians. Are you staying safe? Are we getting overconfident about beating this pandemic? We don't want to put the subs in the game too soon. We need this victory, and let's do it together. Welcome to Audio Video Podcast 30 of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. My guest today, Hall of Fame ring announcer Jimmy Lennon Jr. He was in the center of the ring for that historic fight in Tokyo, and he has stories to tell about that one and more. First, let me introduce the producer of today's show, the director of the FBL 5 slate of shows, the all-time women's volleyball assist leader at New Mexico State, my quarantine partner for life, my wife, Christine Jinbo.
Hi, everybody. I'm here to remind you of those three things again. Three things. You remember them, and you can get to us anywhere. That is sportsstoriespodcast.com. That is number one. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. That's Denny like the restaurant, Lennon like the Beatle. And Sports Stories DL to get to Denny on Twitter and Sports Stories on Twitter. And remember to like, subscribe, and do all those things that help us move further.
You bet. And you know we're going 5 days a week with our programming. I'd really like to step up my game on Twitter. I have a couple ideas that can be fun. So please do follow me at Sports Stories DL. You know, great sport upsets are nothing new to our family. In 2006, Christine and I once coached the St. Mark Elementary School boys volleyball team to a big comeback upset win over Our Lady of Miraculous Medal in the semifinals of the LA Catholic Youth Organization playoffs. That's right. And there was a different Jimmy on that team, Jimmy Tatro. Yep, the actor-comedian that's blowing up. He was hitting outside for us, if I'm not mistaken. No joke. You should look that up. In part 3 of 4 with Jimmy Lennon Jr., we learn about Don King, what it's like to announce in front of 135,000 people, calling the Tyson fight and then getting caught up in the aftermath the night Tupac was shot, and the parade of greats coming to the house when Jimmy Lennon Sr. was in his last days. And now, it's showtime! To our Sports Stories fans around the world, please welcome round 3. From the 7428 studio in Westchester, California, here's the 30-year veteran ring announcer with over 1,000 title fights on his spotless record, the International Hall of Famer, Jimmy Lennon Jr. Please note, this interview was recorded on January 28th, 2020. The showtime phrase. It's showtime.
Yes.
That was there pressure because did Michael Buffer precede having the Let's Get Ready to Rumble, and there was pressure put on you to get a catchphrase, or did that just kind of come up because somebody wanted to show off Showtime pay-per-view?
No, yeah, I could tell you how it came up. There wasn't pressure. I don't know if it's always really necessary, but there was a fight, Julio Cesar Chavez versus Marty Jakubowski at the Mirage in Las Vegas. And one of the Mirage executives got together with the executive producer of Showtime Boxing, myself, and he said, you know what, how about if it's Showtime, they do something like that? And so we kind of worked on it together, and that was the first time I did it. And then I kind of developed it more and more, kind of a more shtick, and now ladies and gentlemen in attendance, boxing event live from, and then they moved to putting the lights on there, so it kind of evolved.
It's cool.
There wasn't really a pressure to do it.
That's good.
But it was it kind of evolved into something that I felt comfortable about, and Showtime loved it too, and it's It's been pretty good.
It's interesting because when I'll say, "Oh yeah, my cousin is Jimmy Lennon Jr." I see people go, and if I follow up with, "He's the one who says it's Showtime," they go, "I know who that is."
Ah, okay.
And I've noticed that I think a lot of it's not inside fans; it's more
Peripheral, yeah.
they go, "Oh yeah, that guy." And the lights go out, and then they come back up. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Did anybody say was that concurrent? It wouldn't have been with the Showtime Lakers. No, they would have been done by then. Probably by the time.
Yes, they would have been done by then.
Yeah. So I was wondering if somebody else suddenly starts launching a quick lawsuit, like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I didn't see magic in the ring with you. I've heard you talk about people that ask you questions, and they said, it's the bigger the crowd, make you nervous, the bigger the pay-per-view, anything along these lines that ramp you up. And you talked about how you lock in, you just get more focused.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
And I feel fortunate with that. In some ways, the larger the crowd, the more enthusiasm and the more it feels like, yeah, this is good. This is working and everything. So they kind of make it easier than an empty crowd or an unenthusiastic crowd. And then, the bigger the event, when it's on me, I tend to focus more. And I'll tell you, I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. I try not to.
I haven't seen one yet.
Yeah, and it's something might even just be with me that I didn't do it right, and I get angry, and I do my best to follow up to do even better, so I won't think about that mistake or.
Have there been your fault or not any mistakes like that where you either were given wrong instruction on who fighters were, or a go time too early, or anything along these lines where you had to backpedal?
Sure, and sometimes it's the microphone is not working, and I just it's not going to. Sometimes it won't be going to the house, or sometimes it won't be going to TV. So I have to make a decision to just continue because TV will pick it up, or do I start over? So those things. There are so many technical things that could go wrong, being cued too early or too late.
I heard there's an incident in '99 at the Pechanga Resort.
I'll never forget that. It was one of the most difficult times.
Well, luckily I was able to pick that guy up and give him a career. That guy Jake Downey, I brought him back. So it's okay.
It's really well deserved because it was a tough situation that night with blood all over his shirt, and it was he deserves some latitude.
Did I read it right? 1,000 title fights about?
Oh, yeah, I think it's about right. Wow. I can't really count that.
30 years been gone?
Yeah, more than 30 years because it was in the early 80s that I started.
1,000 title fights.
Yeah, it's and I really lost count, so I'm just going to guess that. In terms of total fights, maybe 15,000 total fights because my first years I would do so many fights, like I had mentioned about, 25 amateur fights, 50 in a weekend But
wow, that's something else.
Yeah.
How about the you worked the MMA?
Yeah.
As that came, and you're still involved with MMA, or
well, not so much, not as often. I'm a little busy with boxing, but I enjoy the sport, and periodically I'll be able to announce some.
Don King.
Yeah.
How did that how did that come to be? How did you get? Was that through his promotion agency was with HBO, or how did you come to work for him?
Sure. Well, one of my early times is at the Olympic Auditorium. He would bring in a great fighter, and he would fight one of our local guys, and so I'd end up being hired for that. So there was a connection with that, and then I started to do more Showtime fights. I think one of the early big ones was Tyson versus Razor Reddick, and Don King was involved, and I just kept thinking, how can I get more involved in these? And so it gradually happened. A lot of young announcers ask me, what's the secret? How do you do it? And just being in the game and just being there. And so that's what it was with Don King. I just had that connection and repeated connections, and it got bigger. And then he wanted me to do all of his fights. And I was so lucky because Showtime wanted me to do all of their fights at the same time. So if Don King didn't hire me, Showtime said, yeah, we'll take care of you. And so it just developed like that.
Traveling with Don King, there's got to be some crazy stories out there.
Sort of,
Call him a character is an understatement.
Sure. Yeah, there's no question. But my strategy with Don King was to work for him and not pal around with he or the entourage that was. Because fight nights on big fights, he'd be working by himself or a few people around him. Then fight nights, there were all sorts of hanger-oners that were hanging on and getting in the dressing rooms and the production room and front row seats. And it just became a dinner with him. It just became a circus. I think I had dinner with him in all those years twice. And that was it.
Wow.
That's... Yeah.
I was in Fort Lauderdale. I was announcing Women's Pro Beach. Somebody came up and said, Don King is in that restaurant down there. It's early morning. It's 8:30, something in the morning. And we're going to be on like either ABC or CBS, something, I think CBS. And it was a big deal for us because we were always just on Prime Network or something. So it was a big deal. And I just went for it. I went down there. I walked up. I go, Mr. King. He goes, yeah. I go, my uncle is Jimmy Lennon. And he goes, that must make Jimmy Jr., your cousin. I said, it does. He goes, did you have breakfast yet? And I had just eaten. And I said, nope.
Of course.
So I sat and I had breakfast with him. It was awesome. It was just such a random thing. He goes, well, sit down. He goes, and he tell me about your family. So I talked for a little bit, and he said, so is that why you came down here? And I said, I have this crazy idea of you doing the open for us, and you're going to say only in America could a woman in a bathing suit make $12,000 if they win like this. And he goes, you are Lennon or something. And then he goes, I'll tell you why I can't do that. I work for it's something about he had a contract with ABC and he couldn't do CBS or something like that. But he was so nice. Like, I mean, my background on him was, Thriller in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle, Cleveland what may or may not have happened there.
Yeah, well, we know it did happen, so
I guess we do. I guess the court will tell you what happened. So, but he was so very nice.
And I would say the same thing. I owe a lot to him for sticking with me and insisting that I do the fights. There were times when it was on HBO, and HBO didn't want to have me because I was too associated with Showtime. And I've had an executive from HBO approach me and say, Don King is very loyal to you, and he would not have any other announcer than you.
So cool.
And he stood his ground on that.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so he was and is in many ways a real good guy. He's also a very tough guy too, and brilliant too. Brilliant man.
One things I also read, at least 35 countries you've done fights in.
Yeah, I think that's something.
What kind of travel tips you got? Anything unique you do to travel like that, or you just
well
do you know how to shut it down, or you sleep? How do you?
Well,
wow, it's a lot.
It depends on where I'm going. If I'm going to Europe, what I do is I will take a late night flight from LA and I'll sleep on the plane. I'll get there and I'll stay on LA time. So it makes it quite a dull and boring trip, but the jet lag is minimized. So I'll go to sleep in London or Germany, 6 in the morning, wake up 2 or 3 in the afternoon, put on my tuxedo, do the fights, stay up all night, take the first flight in the morning back, sleep on the plane. So I try to do that. In Asia, I have to adjust a bit.
Okay.
I always go carry on. You never check my bags.
Really?
No matter what. No, I don't trust it.
Don't trust it?
No.
You don't wear the tux on the plane?
I don't wear the tux, but I do wear a sports coat on the plane that I might do the weigh-in in.
The weigh-in.
So they'll hang that up for me, and so I can. I minimize all my packing.
Okay.
And
all right.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you a commercial from our sponsor, Casablanca.
Casablanca Restaurant in Venice, California. Proud sponsor of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Also sponsoring the Facebook Live at 5 Friday show.
Margaritas.
That's right. Carlos is kind enough at Casablanca to package up like a to-go what they're selling, right? To-go. What is in it? It's like that taco bar?
Daily deal. He does basically a taco bar with 2 different meats, beans, rice, tortillas. It's fantastic.
Brilliant. And then you throw in the margaritas with that. And if you watch our Friday show, you'll see that we cheers one another. He sends one over to Venice, where Marley and the Rices are hosting part of the show, over here to the 7428 studio.
And
where
any
we do
local
it.
guests.
And any local guests. Doug O'Neill.
Benefit as well.
Doug O'Neill, the Triple Crown winner, horse trainer, is a new big fan. So, thank you, Carlos. You can call Carlos at 310-505-5091. Again, 310-505-5091. Call Carlos. Ask him for the Sports Stories with Denny Lennon special. He's going to throw in margaritas or a big percentage off.
Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca. La comida para la familia. Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca.
And now back to our interview with Jimmy Lennon Jr.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about a couple of the big fights. 1990, Tyson-Douglas, Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, I have a distinct memory that we've been talking about my dad is I remember going to the front door and he opened the door and he was not feeling well, kind of in pajamas and, during his illness era. And I told him, I said, I'm doing Tyson-Douglas. And he really had tears in his eyes. He was so happy. That was my biggest.
What a great memory.
Yeah, my biggest mega fight. My first mega fight, I should say.
What a great memory.
So, yeah, I went there. It was a tremendous trip.
And for those that don't know, there's a good documentary, 42-1. That was sort of the odds on this that were set. So,
considered the biggest upset possibly in sports history, not just in boxing. And so Mike Tyson is there, and I had known him. I did the TV show Webster, and he was on that too. Was that the 80s or 90s?
I am so impressed by your outreach into that.
And so I got to know him there. And he was just brand new champion, and
he's a real student of the sport, so he probably knew who your dad was, right?
Oh, no question. I can tell you another great story about that. But in any case, for this particular fight, so I went there. It was a big deal. I've never, it was an eye-opener for me going to Japan with so many journalists and media and the money that was spent and everything. And I remember not seeing Mike very often. And he was in his room. He didn't come out much. I remember at the press conference, he came out and tons of photos. And sitting next to me was Buster Douglas, who had not yet come up, and no one was paying any attention to him at all. And
Iron Mike was such a huge thing, but so nobody's even paying attention to Buster.
Nah, because he was not. He's expected to be another loss. But
hadn't his mom just died or something like
Buster
that?
Douglas's mom had just died, and so he had some extra motivation. And Mike was in his room most of the time, and clearly not mentally or physically prepared for this fight as well.
Training wise.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, just, it wasn't right.
And you noticed that, but...
Yeah, I did notice that.
But did it make you think that the fight would have any different outcome?
No, I remember the press talking, many of the boxing press there in the shuttles going to the arena and so forth, like, why did I come, and should I have come? Maybe I should have passed on this, and this is going to be a terrible... They're real down. Boxing press is typically kind of downers anyway. They're kind of negatives. But they were really down on this fight and just couldn't believe what happened. And, when Mike knocked Buster down in the beginning of the fight, we thought, okay, finally it's here. And then Buster got up. There was the long count issue. And, you know what? So there may be 45,000 people in the baseball arena. And so quiet. The Japanese fans are so quiet. But you could hear so clearly Don King's. And you sit next to Donald Trump because the next fight was going to be against Holyfield. And that would be in Donald Trump's property. And so they were so Donald Trump, Don King.
In New Jersey property?
Yeah, in Atlantic City.
Whatever that,
I'm not sure.
The big casino he had. Okay.
Yeah. And so here they are talking, and you could hear Don's voice over everyone complaining about the long count. And, and then the end came, the big surprise, couldn't believe it, bedlam. And then we go back to the hotel, then suddenly there's the news, like there's a press conference. Because of the long count. And Octavio Meran, who was the referee, is admitting that he ruined it and so forth. Well, what a shame. He got so much pressure.
Would Don have
pressured him? There was pressure
to
from the WBC, from Don King, from anyone.
Did you perceive a long count?
Sure. It was long, but you got to go by what the referee says. It ended up being, 13 seconds instead of 10 or 9. But, you always go with what the referees count. That's what the fighter is looking at. And
did you have to announce anything on that night in the ring, like
after the decision?
that there's a protest or anything?
No, No, I took the shuttle back to the arena, went to the press conference where I was looking, and it was an odd atmosphere. There was definitely a lot of pressure, a lot of closed doors, discussions and rumors, and it was wild.
Could you perceive that you were part of this unbelievable upset in sports, or were you just kind of in the moment?
In the moment, and in the end, there was a good chance of the decision could have been overturned, but public opinion and the press and everything would not allow that, which is good.
It's a where were you when kind of for sports fans, because I remember distinctly where I was at my friend Mike Asher's apartment, and it was watching Tyson grovel on the ground for his mouthpiece.
Yeah.
That just is burned into my mind. It was like, whoa, the king is dead.
Yeah, amazing.
That was something else.
It was a big event.
And then on the post side, it started to sink in. Like, wait a second, I was there for this.
Yeah. Ended up being big.
That's so cool. Okay, the other one is Julio Cesar Chavez, Greg Haugen.
Yeah.
Is it Haugen?
Haugen.
Mexico City.
135,000 people in attendance.
Okay, that's just nuts.
It's crazy.
So I've been to a Kentucky Derby, and I think there's 150,000 people there.
Oh.
And I was down in the infield,
Ooh.
and you just look around and everything, and it's intimidating. It's like, wow.
It's a sea of people.
135,000, and you're in the middle of the ring.
It was amazing. So Estadio Azteca, a very large soccer stadium, and in order to get in, there was a moat around between the stands and the field.
There's a
moat, and in the moat there are guards with guns and German shepherds.
Jesus.
So because to have 100,000 people storm the ring or so forth,
that wasn't going to happen.
Have that.
No.
I know we did a rehearsal with Showtime. They had me in the ring announcing the fighters at a rehearsal, and there were like 20,000 people at the rehearsal at 12:30 in the afternoon, because it was like a festival for everyone to show up. And it was just amazing, a wonderful, great night. I tell the story that before the main event, I'm in the ring with Don King, and they had a laser show and a music show, for the moment. It was really well done. It was kind of moving. It was, high quality. And you look around, and there are like fires way up there where people were cooking their food. You just would saw this, and we're waiting in this music. And Don King, honestly, man who's seen everything, kind of got misty-eyed and kind of crying. And I always tell the story that later I realized he was counting the proceeds with the number of people counting the gate. But it was really a great event.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's unbelievable. Did I either hear you say or some Julio Cesar Chavez's nickname you just came up with and didn't even run it by him, and you just called him El Gran Champion?
El Gran Campeón Mexicano. Yes.
And you didn't want to run that by him first, or
No.
you made a purposeful plan to just call him that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm going to give credit to my father, who, I honestly don't remember it. I think it was his idea. I would happily give credit to him, because at the early stage of us announcing together and Chavez working, my dad did some of his fights and I did some.
I see.
Yeah.
I think it's hard for just American boxing fans to understand just how important Julio Cesar Chavez was as a citizen of Mexico. I mean, massive. His fame was...
we talked about the big fight in Mexico City, and I had heard before I was there that he had a public workout someplace, and there were 10,000 people who showed up for that in some public arena, and he had to have a helicopter to take him away, because he's such a hero, such an idol, and such a great fighter, and over 100 victories in his career, and for so long he was undefeated, and great fighter. And today, he's doing great. He's doing great today.
The first Tyson one was 90, then that was like 93. So 96, Tyson has been convicted and is now out. Mm-hmm. Did that give you any concern at the weigh-in, that he had changed a person, that he wasn't going to be like respectful of the sport, and that he was a little bit of a loose cannon?
No.
Okay.
No, I really didn't, because when he was in prison, there were a number of interviews, and he seemed quite focused, quite settled, quite centered, and I had a chance to exchange greetings a little bit with him. And his opponent, McNeely, was not a well-respected. He didn't possess a big threat, so didn't have any sense of that at all. Felt like it might be another easy fight.
Did you, as a student of boxing, kind of compare him and Sonny Liston in that, both in prison and then they came out? And because I know the media tried to play off of that, but I didn't see it either. I saw Tyson as he wasn't the same fighter, but he didn't seem.
No, no. And here's something I want to tell you. Before that, he went to prison. He fought a second fight with Razor Ruddock, and it was in the summertime. I think it was June 26th or so. The next day on Sunday, he visits my dad. Comes to our house. I'm living in the back house, and I get a call. There's a white limo outside, and it's Mike Tyson and Tommy Hearns. And so I run up, I see him in here, he knocks on the door, and there's Tommy Hearns and Mike Tyson, and they come in, my dad's in his robe, ill, not doing well, and he sits in his chair, and the two of them, and Mike Tyson sitting in a small stool, looking up to my dad, calling him Mr. Lennon, yes sir, no sir, wanted to talk about wrestling and the history of boxing, and just wanted to make him feel good. And so there's a sweet side of Mike Tyson, which is, the kindest man you can imagine. And so I didn't have any personal fear of that or so, because I saw that side of him a lot. And I don't know if I would relate him to Sonny Liston personally.
Yeah, okay. I know. I just kind of remember reading that, and that was when I started to dig in a little, and I thought,
Okay,
I didn't see it. I didn't, because you had firsthand knowledge. Like Sonny Liston was kind of a surly dude, for his own reasons. But it seemed like Tyson was almost more mellow.
Yeah, off and on, two sides.
Yeah.
Two sides.
The one I want to ask you about was '96, Tyson and Bruce Seldon, Las Vegas, MGM Grand, and that was like Tyson wins in a minute 50 or something. But that was Tupac Shakur's at the fight, right? And then he gets into that altercation, that fight in the casino, and then later on that night he gets shot and killed. Did you first of all know who he was and that he was in and around? Like, was he one of the celebrities you might have introduced or anything that night?
Honestly, I don't remember. If it was in those days, I would announce 25 celebrities. I'd have 2 minutes to do it. I'd have to get through it real quickly before they came back, and so I honestly don't remember at this point if he was one that I had introduced. My memory of that night is so far removed from all of that, but the altercations that occurred in the casino spread a lot, and my recollection is after the fight, walking through the MGM Grand, and suddenly you would hear people screaming and running, in the large aisle hallway, and just scattering and going into the shops to get out of the center. And I would too. What the heck's going on? Wow. And that happened a couple times. It just seemed tense and dangerous. I went to dinner. I went to a steakhouse that night, and I'm in the steakhouse, and suddenly they're screaming, and everyone in the steakhouse goes under the tables.
What?
And so I'm under the table. I happen to be with Ferdy Pacheco at the time, and then we're under the table. And there's another man, Ferdy introduces me. It's the former governor of Kentucky. Oh, hi, how you doing?
Under the table?
Under the table in this steakhouse.
You literally met the governor of
nice
Kentucky
to meet
under
you.
the table.
And then it passes, we go, and I just leave. I'm not, something. And there are rumors, a security stand fell, and that's what the bang. Oh, it was a champagne pop. You would hear different things that why people were running and so forth. Well, later, of course, you heard that there's so many more serious things that occurred. Yeah, I ended up just going to the elevator up to my room just to get away from all of that. But so that's the closest I came to any of that. But it was a very tense, dangerous feeling night after the fight.
Now it's time for an installment of As Time Goes By, where we get to know Carlos Haro Jr. of Casablanca Restaurant in Venice 1 minute at a time. Now, let's play it again with Carlos Jr. Casablanca movie trivia with Carlos. The family restaurant. This should be easy, right? What war did the movie Casablanca take part in?
What war?
What war?
Second World War.
Good. Where's Casablanca?
In Morocco.
Very good. Who played the role of Rick Blaine?
Rick Blaine was by Humphrey Bogart.
What was the name of his nightclub?
I think his nightclub was Rick's Cafe.
Rick's Cafe. Who played the role of Issa Lund?
That was Ingrid Bergman.
And who was she married to in the movie?
She was married to Lasso. I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Victor Laszlo.
Victor Laszlo.
Okay, you're killing. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Christine Jimbo and Marley Rice. Sports Stories is edited by Bob McCall. Additional staff include Ray Castro, Teresa Dolan, Jake Downey, Carlos Haro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
Oh, what a night. You know I didn't even know her name, but I was never gonna be the same. What a lady, what a night. Oh, what a night. Why'd it take so long to see the light? It seems so wrong, but Mike thinks it's right. Sweet surrender, oh Mike. Oh, I had a funny feeling when she walked in the room. Oh, Mike, I recalled it ended much too soon. Oh, what a night.
Check it out, Buck.